The room was small and cold. The lights flickered, and soft beeping sounds came from broken machines. Dr. Illen sat near the old console, her hands shaking. She looked tired, and her eyes were red from crying. Around her, the research base was silent. There was no one else left. Outside the base, the planet was quiet, but not peaceful. Thick gray clouds covered the sky. The wind howled like it was crying with her. The base had been built to study deep space energy, far from Earth, far from help. No one expected trouble here. It was supposed to be safe. Illen pressed a button. The console made a soft noise, and the red light turned green. She was ready to send a message. Her voice was quiet, almost a whisper. "This is Dr. Illen Maya from Deep Station Aurora," she said. "Please, if anyone hears this, we need help. Something happened here. We were not ready." She paused. Her hand went to her face. She didn't want to cry again, but the tears still came. She tried to stay strong. She had to. "We were just scientists. We didn't do anything wrong. But now, I'm the only one left. Please, if someone is out there, please help me." She ended the message and sent it across space. The signal would travel to the closest outposts, maybe even reach Earth. She didn't know who would hear it, but she had to try. After sending the message, Illen leaned back and closed her eyes. The silence in the room felt heavy. Her mind kept going back to what had happened. She remembered laughter from her friends, the joy of new discoveries, the quiet meals they shared. Now, all of it was gone. She stood up slowly and walked to the window. She looked out into the strange blue sky. She didn't know if help would come. Maybe no one would care. Maybe no one would listen. But still, she hoped. Far away, on a small listening station near Mars, a young operator named Jaden noticed something strange. A weak signal was blinking on his screen. He clicked it, and Ellen's voice played softly in the room. He sat up straight. It wasn't just a signal. It was a cry for help. Jaden called his supervisor. Soon, the message was sent to higher stations. Within hours, it reached Earth's main command center. People listened. Some were quiet. Some looked sad. Others looked angry. They had not heard a message like this in a long time. But Earth's leaders didn't say anything right away. They had rules. They had to wait for the Galactic Council to respond. Earth was part of the galaxy's peaceful order now. They couldn't act without permission. That's what the law said. In the Galactic Council's Great Hall, the message played again. Tall alien leaders listened. Some didn't care. Others shook their heads. One of them laughed softly and said, "It's just one human. Why should we get involved?" No vote was taken. No help was sent. Back on Earth, people started to share the message. On news screens, Ellen's face showed up. On social networks, people wrote, "Why is no one helping her?" And "She's alone out there." A group of students lit candles in her name. A teacher showed the message to her class and asked, "What would you do if it was you?" In quiet rooms, people cried. In busy cities, people stopped and listened. The whole planet heard the cry of one human in the dark. Ellen didn't know any of this. She was still in the small cold room, waiting. Her food was low. The air system made strange noises, but she stayed alive. She believed someone would come. Outside her window, the wind blew harder. A small bird-like creature landed on the glass and looked at her. She smiled. It gave her a little hope. Even in this lonely place, life was still trying. As night came on the distant planet, Ellen sat by the console. Her fingers touched the controls. She sent the message again and again. Each time, her voice was quieter, but the words still held hope. "This is Dr. Ellen Maya. Please, don't forget me." Across space, her voice traveled. It passed stars, moons, and dark clouds. It entered silent rooms and loud halls. It moved through wires and waves. And somewhere, deep inside Earth's heart, Something had started to change. Elin woke up to the soft sound of wind outside the base. The sky had changed colors during the night, turning from dark blue to a soft orange. She looked around the room. It was quiet. The machines were still running, but slowly. Some lights blinked, others stayed off. She stood up and walked to the small table in the corner. There was only a little food left, just enough for maybe 2 more days. She ate a few bites, then sat down near the main console. Her hand touched the button again. She didn't know how many times she had pressed it, but each time felt more important than the last. Far away, back on Earth, the message had reached more people. It wasn't just shown on screens anymore. It had become a topic in homes, schools, and public parks. People were talking about the woman who was alone in space. They didn't know her, but they felt connected to her. Some said, "She sounds brave." Others asked, "Why is no one helping her?" A little boy wrote her name on a paper star and placed it in his window. An old man listened to the message again and again. "Her voice reminds me of my daughter," he whispered. In quiet rooms, leaders met to talk. Some wanted to send help right away. Others said, "We must wait. We need approval." But deep down, many of them knew the truth. Help might come too late. Still, the people of Earth did not forget. They shared her voice like a song. Artists painted her face. Writers made stories about her. Children drew rockets with her name on them. Her message had become something more than a cry. It had become a reminder. Back in the base, Elin checked the systems. The oxygen level was slowly dropping. The temperature was colder than before. Her fingers felt numb when she touched the metal surface. Still, she kept working. She checked wires, pressed buttons, and wrote notes in her journal. "I don't know who's listening," she wrote, "but if someone ever reads this, I want them to know. I believed. I believed someone would care." As the day passed, the wind outside grew stronger. The base creaked softly, as if it were sighing. Elin wrapped herself in a blanket and sat near the window. She watched clouds drift across the sky, carrying colors that looked like Earth's sunsets. Suddenly, a small blinking light caught her eye. The console screen lit up with a message. "Signal received. Stand by." She jumped to her feet. Her heart beat faster. She didn't dare to smile yet. It could be a mistake. But the message stayed. The words were real. "Is someone there?" she asked, pressing the mic. "This is Dr. Elin Maya. Please respond." The screen stayed quiet. No reply came. But the blinking continued. The signal was real. Someone somewhere had finally answered. Elin stared at the screen for a long time. She whispered, "Thank you," even though no voice had spoken back yet. It was the first sign of hope in many days. Meanwhile, on a quiet floor in Earth's orbital command center, a small team sat around a table. They had tracked Elin's signal. A young officer named Marin was the one who sent the message back. "She's alive," Marin said softly. "She's really still there." His voice shook a little, but his eyes were clear. The room was quiet. Then one by one, the team members nodded. They knew they couldn't wait for approval forever. Something deeper than rules was guiding them now. That night, Earth did not sleep. More people gathered outside, looking at the stars. Some held lights. Some held hands. Many looked up and whispered silent wishes. "Come home, Elin," they said. "Please hold on." Back at the base, Elin sat near the console. She didn't move much. Her body was tired, but her mind was full of light. The blinking message stayed on the screen. It was quiet company, but it was enough. She began to record another message. "This is Elin. I got your signal. I don't know who you are, but thank you. I'm still here. I'm still waiting. I'll keep the light on. I'll keep hoping." She looked out the window one more time. The stars seemed closer now, like they were watching her. Maybe they were. And somewhere, deep in the heart of Earth, the first quiet steps were being taken. Not loud, not fast, but steady, toward something the galaxy had never seen before. A soft humming sound echoed through the empty halls of the base. Elin sat still beside the main console, eyes fixed on the blinking light. The words were still there. Signal received. Stand by. It had been hours since the message appeared, and no new words had come. But she didn't leave her seat. Her hands were wrapped in cloth, the cold biting through the base like a quiet whisper. The power was dropping, but she had turned off everything she didn't need, saving energy for the communication system. She knew this might be her only chance. A soft light from a nearby panel started to flicker. Elin turned and tapped the screen. A new line appeared. Tracking beacon located. Stabilizing link. Her heart felt warm for a moment. The machine was old, the connection weak, but something out there was trying to reach her. Please, she whispered to no one. Please don't stop now. Back on Earth, in a quiet room filled with screens and cables, Marin watched the data with care. The signal from Elin's base was weak but steady. He had stayed past his shift, watching every small update. His coffee had gone cold hours ago, but he didn't notice. Beside him, an older technician named Tara checked numbers on her tablet. The base is losing power, she said softly. If we don't act soon, we may lose her. Marin nodded. I know, but we need a way. The Council won't help, and the long-range ships aren't ready. Tara looked at him and said, sometimes we don't wait for permission. Sometimes we make the first move. They both knew the truth. Earth had the tools, the ships, the people, but rules and silence had stopped them. Now hearts were louder than orders. At that very moment, a group of engineers from Earth's private space agency held a meeting in secret. They had seen Elin's message. One of them had worked with her years ago. He stood and said, I can't just sit and watch. Another spoke. We can reach her. We have the ship. We only need a crew. Outside the cities, families gathered in their homes. Many kept the screens on all day, hoping for news. A little girl named Lion held a drawing of a spaceship flying to a small star. She's there, Lion said, and someone's coming for her. Back on the base, Elin had started talking again. She didn't know if anyone could hear, but it felt better to speak. I used to think the galaxy was big and empty, she said quietly. But now, I think it's full of small lights. Tiny pieces of hope. And maybe, just maybe, one of those lights is coming my way. She smiled, even though her lips were dry. The food was nearly gone, and the cold was stronger than before. But the blinking light on the console gave her strength. She started recording stories, memories, things she wanted to share in case someone found the base later. Her voice was soft, but steady. We once planted a small garden here. It didn't grow much, just a few green leaves, but it reminded us of home. We sang on Sundays. It was always out of tune, but it made us laugh. We looked at the stars and wondered who was out there. I never thought I'd become the one who needed to be found. Outside her window, the sky had turned a pale silver. The wind moved gently, brushing dust across the glass. The bird-like creature returned, tapping its tiny feet on the ledge. Elin looked at it and whispered, I'm still here. Hours passed, and then another message appeared. Rescue mission in planning. Keep transmitting. You are not alone. Elin covered her mouth with both hands. Her eyes filled with tears. She whispered the words again. You are not alone. That message, simple and quiet, reached the hearts of millions on Earth. It spread faster than the first one. People clapped, cheered, and cried. Teachers told their students, this is what hope looks like. An artist painted a picture of Elin reaching for the stars. A singer wrote a song called Still Here. In homes, on streets, in stations and cities, the name Elin Maya was spoken with care. She had become more than a scientist. She was now a voice that reminded everyone what it meant to care, even from light years away. And somewhere, just beyond the blue edge of Earth's sky, A small crew prepared quietly. Their ship was old, but ready. They loaded supplies, checked systems, and looked at the map. They were going to a place most had never heard of, a quiet base on a lonely planet. But they weren't going for fame or reward. They were going for one reason only. Because one voice had cried out in the dark, and someone had listened. The stars above looked still, like tiny lights frozen in the sky. Aylin sat quietly, wrapped in a thick blanket, her back against the wall of the control room. Her fingers moved slowly across the console, checking for updates. Every sound the base made felt louder now. The soft beeps, the hum of the remaining power, the faint wind brushing against the outer walls. The message on the screen hadn't changed. Rescue mission in planning. Keep transmitting. You are not alone. She read those words again and again, like a poem she didn't want to forget. Outside the base, the light was dim. Dust floated gently in the air, and the sky was a pale blue mixed with gray. The small bird-like creature had returned, standing on the window ledge as if it were watching her. It didn't speak, but somehow its presence made Aylin feel less lonely. She stood up, slowly, her legs stiff. Her footsteps were soft on the metal floor as she walked to the main storage unit. She opened it and checked what was left. One sealed meal, half a bottle of water, 2 light batteries, and a notebook. She smiled. "I guess we've seen better days," she whispered. But she didn't feel afraid. Not like before. Something had changed inside her. She no longer felt forgotten. Someone out there was planning, thinking, moving toward her. And that was enough for now. She picked up the notebook and opened it to a fresh page. The pen felt cold in her hand, but she began to write. "To the one who is coming, I don't know your name. I don't know how far you've traveled, but I want to say thank you. You gave me something I had lost. Hope." On Earth, preparations were quietly taking shape. In a private hangar hidden near the mountains, the rescue team was checking the final systems on the ship. They had named it Aurora, after the first light that touches the sky in the morning. The captain, a calm and thoughtful woman named Nera, looked at the screen showing Aylin's last transmission. Her voice, soft but brave, played in the background. "She's holding on," Nera said. "That means we must reach her." Her crew nodded. There was no celebration, no loud voices, just quiet understanding. They knew this wasn't just a rescue mission. This was something deeper. Aylin's message had touched the world in a way no command could. In cities and towns, people left lights on in their windows at night. Some placed drawings of stars near their doors. Children learned Aylin's name in school, not as a hero of war, but as a hero of heart. Back on the base, Aylin used the little energy she had to send another message. Her voice was softer now, but still full of strength. "This is Aylin Maya. I received your message. I don't know how far you are, but I believe in you. Every moment I wait, I think of the people who are listening. I will keep sending messages. I will keep believing." After recording, she sat near the window again, watching the sky. The small creature blinked its bright eyes and tilted its head. Aylin smiled at it. "Do you have a name?" She asked it quietly. Of course, it didn't answer, but it stayed close, as if it understood she didn't want to be alone. Suddenly, a small light appeared in the sky, just a dot, far in the distance. Aylin stood up, her eyes wide. It could have been a star, or maybe a ship. It blinked once, then again. She rushed back to the console. "This is Aylin," she said, pressing the button. "If you can hear me, I see something. It's small. It's blinking. Please respond." There was no answer yet, but her heart felt lighter. She sat by the console, eyes on the sky, refusing to look away. On Earth, Nera's ship had just launched, rising slowly through clouds of silver dust. The engines hummed softly as the planet's curve disappeared below them. They carried food, blankets, power cells, and most importantly, a message of care. Back on the base, night fell again. Ellen turned on the last lamp, its yellow glow filling the room with warmth. She curled up beside the console, still watching the sky. The creature on the window blinked once more before resting its head under its wing. Before sleep took her, she whispered one last sentence. "They're coming." The night was quiet, save for the gentle hum of the base's remaining systems. Ellen sat by the console, her eyes staring out at the dark sky. The small creature, its feathers a soft shade of blue, had finally moved away from the window, settling in a corner of the room. She had not expected it to stay, but there was something comforting about its presence. Even though it never spoke, it seemed to understand her, as if it knew the quiet ache in her heart. She reached for the small radio beside her. Her fingers were cold, but she managed to press the button. "This is Elon, Maya. I'm still here," she said, her voice soft but steady. The message wasn't for anyone in particular, just a small act of defiance against the silence that surrounded her. She wasn't giving up. Not yet. The stars outside twinkled faintly, like tiny whispers of the universe. There was something calming about them. Even though Elon knew the distance between her and the Earth was vast, it felt strange, sitting here alone on a forgotten world, while the planet she called home seemed so far away. She closed her eyes for a moment, thinking of the people she had left behind. Her friends, her family. It felt like a lifetime ago. Yet with each passing day, the memories of Earth stayed sharp in her mind. The laughter of her younger sister, the warm touch of her mother's hand, the smell of rain on the streets. They were like small treasures she kept close, especially now. In a faraway control room on Earth, the team had made their final preparations. The Aurora, a ship of hope and determination, was nearing the outer edge of the atmosphere. The crew aboard it had worked tirelessly for days, adjusting systems, preparing food and supplies, and making sure everything was ready for the long journey ahead. They had trained for this moment, but now that it was here, everything felt real. Too real. Captain Nera stood at the helm, staring at the stars ahead. Beside her, Marin checked his equipment, making sure the navigation systems were all set. "We're about to leave orbit," he said, his voice calm but with a hint of something else. He had never been part of a mission like this, where the stakes were so high. They were not just going to rescue a scientist. They were bringing hope. They were showing the universe that humanity could rise to meet the impossible. "We'll get her," Nera said, her voice filled with quiet confidence. "We promised." Back on the base, Elin was already at the console, her hand hovering over the buttons. She checked the oxygen levels again. A few more hours, she thought, and the power would be gone. There would be nothing left but the cold silence of space. But she refused to believe that. She refused to let herself think that way. Instead, she leaned back in her chair, closing her eyes for a moment, letting her thoughts drift. She imagined what it would be like when the rescue team arrived. The ship would be large, perhaps even majestic. She pictured herself stepping out of the base, feeling the warmth of a human touch, hearing voices again. She imagined the crew, their faces full of relief, smiling as they saw her for the first time. She could almost hear their voices in her head, calling out to her. "You made it, Elin. We're here." She smiled at the thought, a small tear slipping down her cheek. She wiped it away quickly. "I'm still here," she whispered to herself, a reminder that she was not forgotten. As the hours passed, the base grew colder. The small creature had long since vanished, and Elin was alone once more. The silence around her seemed heavier now, like the weight of 1,000 years pressing down. She had not expected to feel so alone, even in the vastness of space. But somehow, in the quiet, the isolation felt louder than anything she had experienced on Earth. Then, just as the last remaining light blinked out on the console, a small flicker appeared. Elin's breath caught in her throat. The blinking light grew stronger, more consistent. It wasn't just a flicker. Someone had sent a signal. Her heart raced as she sat up, her hands shaking with excitement. "This is Elin, Maya," she said quickly into the mic. "I can hear you. Please, respond." For a moment, There was nothing but silence. Then, a soft crackling sound came through the speakers. Elin's hands gripped the armrests, her body tense with anticipation. She could barely breathe, the moment hanging between hope and uncertainty. And then, a voice. "Elin, this is Nera. We're coming for you. Hold on. We're almost there." Tears flooded Elin's eyes. She closed them for a moment, letting the words wash over her. It was real. They had heard her. They had found her. "I'm still here," she whispered again, this time with a sense of peace she hadn't felt in a long while. "Thank you. Thank you." Back on Earth, the crew aboard the Aurora stood by, knowing that their mission wasn't just about reaching a distant planet. It was about giving Elin something that had been taken from her. Her hope. And through that hope, they would all be united once again. The days seemed to stretch endlessly for Elin as she sat by the console, her eyes glued to the blinking signal. Each flash of light felt like a promise. They were coming. Slowly, but surely, the Aurora was making its way through the vastness of space, heading toward her. The thought of finally seeing them, of stepping out of this isolation, and into the warmth of human presence, kept her going. But with each passing hour, the weight of time began to press harder on her. She had learned to endure loneliness, but the thought of being alone, even in the presence of others, was still a heavy burden. The silence of the base, the empty walls, the quiet hum of the machinery, it all felt suffocating at times. Yet, Elin remained strong. Every time doubt crept into her mind, she would glance at the signal and remind herself that someone was out there, fighting to reach her. The crew of the Aurora had made the choice to risk everything to bring her home. She would not give up. She could not give up. In the heart of the Aurora, the crew was still adjusting to the unexpected challenges of their mission. The ship wasn't designed for long-range rescue operations, but they had made do. The crew worked together in perfect harmony, each of them focused on their task. There was no room for hesitation, no room for uncertainty. Captain Nera stood before the star map, tracing the route with her finger. They had already passed the asteroid belt, the outermost reaches of the galaxy. The path ahead would be even more treacherous. They would have to navigate through dangerous fields of debris, and the farther they traveled, the more difficult it would be to maintain communication. But Nera wasn't worried. She had led crews through tougher missions before. This was just another challenge to overcome. Her thoughts turned to Elin. She had heard her voice, calm and steady, through the comms. That brief exchange had filled Nera with a sense of hope she hadn't realized she needed. It wasn't just a rescue anymore. It was a promise. They were going to bring Elin back. In the control room, Marin adjusted the engines, ensuring the ship was running smoothly. He couldn't help but think about the weight of the mission. He had never met Elin, but in a way, he felt like he knew her. Her voice, her strength, the way she had held on to hope for so long, it was inspiring. "We're almost there," Marin said, his voice breaking the silence in the room. "We just have to keep pushing forward." Nera gave him a nod, her eyes still on the star map. "We'll make it. We have to." Back on the base, Elin felt the chill of the air grow colder. The temperature was dropping fast. She had no way of knowing how much time had passed since she last heard the voice of the rescue team, but she knew it wouldn't be long before they arrived. She stood up from the console and walked to the small window again, her breath fogging the glass as she pressed her forehead against it. The view outside was breathtaking. The planet she was on was quiet, peaceful, almost serene in its stillness. It felt like a different world, a place where nothing had ever been disturbed. And yet, it had become a prison for her, a prison she could never escape on her own. But now, as the ship drew closer, the walls of that prison seemed to shrink. She turned back to the console and checked the signal once more. It blinked steadily, reassuring her that they were still coming. She took a deep breath, trying to steady her nerves. The anticipation was unbearable, but she refused to let fear take over. In the background, the small creature reappeared, Its bright eyes looked up at her, and for the first time in days, Aelin smiled. It was as though the creature understood the weight of this moment too. "They're coming," she whispered to it. "I won't be alone anymore." As she spoke, the comms crackled once again. She rushed to the console, fingers trembling as she pressed the button. "Aelin," Captain Nera's voice came through clearly, strong and sure. "We are almost there. We'll be with you soon. Hold on just a little longer. Stay with us." Aelin's heart soared as she listened. This was it. The long wait was almost over. In that moment, she felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Relief. The tension that had held her so tightly seemed to loosen, if only for a moment. "Thank you," Aelin whispered. "Thank you for believing in me." She sat down again, feeling the weight of her body settle into the chair. The room was silent except for the soft hum of the bass, the steady beat of her own heartbeat. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, she closed her eyes and allowed herself to relax. Out in the vastness of space, the aurora continued its journey. The stars seemed to shine a little brighter now, as if the universe itself was watching and waiting for the moment when Aelin would finally be reunited with those who had come for her. The distance between them was closing. The darkness of space would soon be filled with the light of hope, and Aelin would no longer be alone. The long wait was finally coming to an end. Helen could feel the shift in the air as the signal flickered once more, brighter this time, pulsing with a steady rhythm. Each blink of the light on the console felt like the heartbeat of the galaxy itself, as though the universe was holding its breath, waiting for the moment to unfold. She stood up slowly, her legs stiff from the long hours of sitting. The room around her seemed both familiar and foreign, familiar in its emptiness, yet foreign because she had spent so many hours staring at the same walls, the same silence. It was a feeling she had never grown used to. But today, everything felt different. She could sense the change in the air, in the very fabric of time that had stretched so endlessly before her. Today was the day. Aelin moved toward the window again, looking out at the quiet planet below. Her fingers traced the cold glass as she watched the stars twinkle, far and distant. The emptiness of space no longer felt overwhelming. Instead, it was a canvas for everything that was about to happen. She wasn't just waiting anymore. She was anticipating something far more powerful, something that would bring her back to where she belonged. Suddenly, a light on the console blinked rapidly, a signal she had not expected but had hoped for. Her heart skipped a beat. It was a confirmation. The aurora was within range. She hurried to the console and pressed the comm button, her hands trembling with excitement. "Nera, Marin, can you hear me?" Aelin's voice cracked slightly, but there was no mistaking the joy that seeped through her words. For a moment, there was only the crackling of static, but then Nera's voice came through, as clear as if she were standing right next to Aelin. "We're here, Aelin," Nera said, her voice filled with warmth and relief. "We're almost there. Just hold on a little longer." Aelin felt tears well up in her eyes, but she blinked them away quickly. She could not afford to break down now, not when she was so close to the end of this lonely journey. "I've waited so long. You don't have to wait anymore," Nera interrupted, her voice strong, comforting. "We've got you." And then, through the static, came another voice. "Marin's, we're coming for you, Aelin. Get ready." With a deep breath, Aelin wiped her face and turned from the console, looking around the small room one last time. She thought about all the moments that had led up to this point. The cold, the silence, the isolation. She thought about the small creature that had stayed by her side, the flickering lights on the console that had kept her grounded. And she thought about the voices she had heard, the promise of rescue, and the hope that had carried her through the darkest of days. The sound of the engines rumbled faintly through the walls. Aelin walked over to the hatch, her fingers brushing the cool metal. It was a strange feeling, knowing that in just a few minutes, the door would open and she would be free. The weight of the unknown hung in the air, but it was no longer a threat. It was a new beginning. As she waited, she glanced back at the window one last time. The stars, the planet below, everything had felt so far away. But now, it was as if the world was pulling her back into its embrace. She wasn't alone anymore. The crew of the Aurora was coming to bring her home, and with them, her future. The door to the base slowly opened with a soft hiss. Ellen felt the cold rush of air hit her face, and she took a deep breath, inhaling the crisp atmosphere. The faintest whisper of hope filled the space around her. She stepped forward, her feet moving toward the threshold. The universe had shifted, and she was about to take the first step back into the world she had once known. Beyond the door, the Aurora hovered in the distance, its lights blinking in the dark expanse of space. It was larger than she had imagined, its sleek silhouette glowing with the promise of rescue. For a moment, Ellen simply stood there, mesmerized by the sight. It was real. It was happening. And then she heard it, the sound of a voice calling out her name. Ellen. She looked up to see Captain Nera standing at the entrance of the ship, her face beaming with a wide smile. Behind her, Marin waved, his eyes filled with joy. The crew was there. They were here. Ellen's heart swelled with emotion as she walked toward them. Every step felt like a victory, each one bringing her closer to the life she had longed for. As she stepped onto the ramp, Nera stepped forward, reaching out to her. "You're safe now," Nera said softly, placing a hand on Ellen's shoulder. "Welcome home." Ellen smiled, a mix of relief and joy flooding her chest. She had made it. The stars above, the ship before her, and the crew that had come for her, they were all part of the promise that humanity had made. They would never forget her, and she would never forget them. As they all stepped aboard the Aurora, Ellen looked out one last time at the distant planet she had once called home. It was the end of one journey and the beginning of another. She was no longer alone. Together with the crew, they would navigate the vastness of space, and no matter where they went, she knew she would never have to face the darkness alone again.